So before we starting out with the gun skills and all those kind of things, Beastboi, I'm gonna show you first how to have a right sensitivity. So you practically played on around 7.7, which is like ultra high, which is this speed. This is what I saw you play on, around this speed. So if you then try to like hit your shots, it's gonna be looking like this. And this is just me trying to hit it with your sensitivity. It's a lot more difficult to hit shots when your sensitivity is this high. Let's say I lower that sensitivity by around 30%. Well, now I'll hit a lot more hip fire shots. As you can see, this is 30% slower than what you're running. I'm hitting, as you can see, a lot more shots. So now we're on Imperial Hall's sensitivity. And it looks a lot better because you have way more tracking on a lower sense compared to a higher sense. So having a lower sensitivity make this higher. So if you're like aiming in and you don't move, of course you don't get tracking. But if you just move a little bit, look, I'm not even touching my controller. Now I get auto lock on, kind of. This is what happens if your sensitivity is really low. If your sensitivity is super high, like what's yours, you're gonna get the same tracking, but it's still like a lot more difficult to hit because your cruiser goes all over the place. You know what I mean? Like look how hard it is to hit with your sensitivity compared to if I have it on a lot slower sensitivity and I'm aiming in and it just follows a lot easier. It's a lot easier to hold, a lot easier to stabilize, a lot easier to hit compared to what you're running. You know, Beastboi, I have this clip for you with the R9. So this is about the range in which you hip fire, like this tiny ass range. So if you're here and you hip fire, you're most likely gonna hit your entire hip fire. But I see you hip fire from here. And if you hip fire from here, it's like I can still like hit some shots doing this hip fire from this range. But a lot of people don't have like the centering to hit this from this range. So let's say I'm stopped centering myself, okay? I stop using my left joystick to center myself. Then it looks like this. This is if I stop centering myself with my left joystick. Then I would like hit nothing anymore. But if I start centering, then I'll hit like almost everything. Because you're practically you're standing at a point and you're moving away from this point to then stop your bullet line so it goes straight. So if I like, let's say I do this, I can keep the point straight in the middle of my screen. You see what I mean? With my left joystick. And that is how I'm centering my right joystick and then hip fire. But that's like a technique for if you like play this game for a bit. But in this range, you're better off just like starting to aim, to be honest. Like if you're aiming from this distance, you're gonna hit way more shots than if you hip fire. Sometimes you don't get the lock on and then it's just like a rip bozo. But from this range, you're better off like aiming instead of hip firing. So you practically have to just like look where's the enemy going and aim towards it away. So let's say he's going here, you're aiming here. You're aiming here, here, and then here. You're not really aiming at the center because if you're aiming next to him, you can follow him easier. So like let's say he's moving to the left. I'm aiming like a little bit to his left or to his right. So I could change to where he goes. So once I'm aiming here and he goes back to the right, I'm instantly back on him. You see what I mean? So here I'm basically just tracking him the whole time of where he goes. And you can literally do that if they're like all moving around, you could actually practically do the same thing by having your cruiser like right before him, so it's easier to move around with. And sometimes they move like different sides, and then you just flicker to the right or flicker to the left. But it's like very interesting what you can do with an R99 actually. Where would I never hip fire? Okay, if I'm like, let's say here next to him, like I'm standing this close to him, I don't really want to hip fire because... yeah. I would want to stay a little bit away from him. If I was this close to him, I would rather pick out a PK. So let's say I'm this close to him, okay? At this range, I'm not using my R99 as much anymore. I would just hip fire with PK. It would be a lot better. I would only aim in if I have a certain shot. So let's say I have cover and I know the enemy is in the open. I'm lining up my shot to then hit them. I'm not really like in the open in front of him. I'm not like aiming when I'm here. When I'm in front of him, I would just hip fire. Because you're better off hip firing at close range than aiming in most cases with a PK. For my experience. But each gun has a downside and a different bullet pattern. So let's say you have an R99. You walk up to like, let's say this wall. And you're aiming in and you just shoot. Okay, it goes in a straight line. So you're just holding this button where you look around with down. So let's say I hold it down while I'm shooting. You see what I'm doing? You hold this down and then you aim in. It's a lot easier to hit your shot this way. This is without centering myself. When I'm centering myself, it's gonna be even better. Because then you'd hit way more shots. But just having this knowledge of where your bullets go and then holding it down to exactly where it goes, it's just like GG's, man. Like you should just work on those like tiny things early on before you're trying to like do crazy movement or you're trying to do other gun skills. I would recommend just like controlling all your recoils first and know where to exactly shoot and land your shots. To have like the best way of like using your guns early on. I think this would help you win a lot more fights. Just being able to hit your shots is like gonna help you win so many more fights. One clip 2 in a row. One clip 2 in a row.